What I'm going to do now is take this ground wire here, and we're going to screw it in to the bracket down on the left right here. Self-tapping screw. It's a little tricky to get sometimes. And just want to make sure, go around back, make sure that I'm not drilling into anything I shouldn't be. And once it's started, I'm going to let off, get the ground terminal in the position I need it to be. And usually once I'm through there, I like to tighten them by hand just to make sure that we don't take the Phillips head and get a little too tight. But it's usually, this is actually going to work out really well here. Again, this is just a self-tapping screw, a star washer, and a uninsulated ring terminal with it supplied with a remote start kit. And we've got our ground in place. Alright, this time we've got the ground is in place. The ground wire you can see right over there is screwed down. And you have the two fuses for the for constant power. Today I actually just soldered one over the other side and soldered them into the constant power wire, which is tan and with a black stripe on the other side. You can see my finger. You can't really see it too well from here, but it's my finger's touching it, and it's in the front facing connector. It's a heavy gauge wire. What I'm going to do at this time is I've got 5 separate wires here, for brake lights, parking lights, factory alarm, disarm, unlock, and lock. I'm going to solder these at this time. I like to solder multiple wires at once. You got to be careful with that a little bit because you don't want to short circuits together. I mean, sometimes it's not something that's ideal to do. In the case of like with parking lights and brake lights where they're not powered, or the locks, I mean they're not sensitive circuits where you're going to really damage something if you accidentally do touch the wires. But it could be bad if you shorted them shorted them directly to 12-volt power, like with a high current, which is why I tend to solder. I always solder the 12-volt constant power connections separately, but the other ones are really not. I mean, you don't want to obviously try not to solder on circuits that are live if you don't have to. Solder, put enough on the tip of it so that you're to get it flowing onto the wire, and then from there you just want to apply the solder directly to the wire once it's hot enough and got enough. Once the wire is able to absorb the multiple connections like that, or absorb the solder, because it's better to Now you can see I find solder joints. I'm going to tape those up, and we're going to move on to the ignition harness in a minute. Okay, next place that we got to make our connections is the ignition harness. The main wires of the ignition switch, I've already connected them, soldered them, taped them, and I've plugged the ignition switch back in, as well as re-clipped the harness into place. What I'm going to do now is actually solder these wires. That's for the secure lock immobilizer bypass. You can see down here there's the bypass module. I'm leaving it down for the time being, just because sometimes you need to access it. Might need to use the reset program button for a while afterwards. That's usually going to be the last step, because basically you need to verify that the remote starter is working properly before you program the bypass to resolve any other issues, which I don't anticipate will have anything, but again, that's always the best thing to save for last. So I've already soldered, no need to demonstrate that again, so I'm going to this is going to be all from the inside, and next will be under the hood.